Hey, it's Brian Mertens, and in this video, I want to talk about a question that a lot of people have in urban environments when they also have an interest in nature study and tracking and bird language. And it's basically, I hear from a lot of people saying, hey, Brian, I live in the city. We don't have massive stretches of untouched wilderness. Can I still learn about nature? Can I still get good at tracking and awareness? And my answer to that is, not only can you still do it, but in many cases, it will actually be easier in an urban environment. Now, I know that might sound a bit strange because cities are not often known for their abundance of nature, but it's also actually a bit of a modern illusion that every single forest wilderness is completely packed with wildlife. And there have been many times when I've spent extended periods out in the wilderness and encountered very little in terms of spectacular nature events. And this is actually in contrast to my experience when I go into the city. And, pretty much every time I go into the city, I find something that totally blows my mind, like big mobs of crows chasing after hawks or families of raccoons just hanging out in the park. And the thing to remember is that any technique that works in the wilderness for being more aware of your surroundings and starting to understand the inner lives of birds and animals, it's universal. It works no matter where you are, and it's simply about realizing that nature is an interconnected system that works on the same fundamental principles, whether in the desert or up on the mountainside or in the middle of an urban center. It's just going to be laid out a little bit differently in each of those situations. So, some of the things to look for in a city environment, we have to remember that the food sources are going to be a big driver of wildlife activity. And you might have long stretches of concrete that coincide with an almost total absence of wildlife. But then in the places where there are parks or even in your backyard garden, there's often a really incredible diversity of plants and trees, both native and non-native, that creates a kind of oasis for many different types of birds and animals and natural systems that would be a lot harder to find if you were way out in the middle of the woods somewhere. Now, another thing that's kind of cool about studying nature in the city is that urban animals do actually become accustomed to having people around. And what you'll find is that you're able to get closer and observe animals much more easily and for longer periods of time compared to places where they might have miles and miles of wilderness to hide in. So, the real trick to making nature study work for you in the city is that you have to get tuned with the elements of nature that are abundant in your environment. So, if you want to learn bird language, study the behavior and alarm calls of the most common urban birds. And you can learn a ton about bird language in the middle of the city just by watching things like crows and pigeons, especially through their interactions with hawks. If you want to learn tracking, a lot of times if you're in a place where there are bridges going over water, you can actually find sand and trackable substrate underneath the bridge, which enables you to learn about the animals that might be moving under there, like mice and birds and raccoons, weasels, foxes, coyotes. All these things can be found in urban environments when you know where to look. And so another thing that's pretty unique about cities is that there are so many people. And with that many eyes and ears in close proximity, there will undoubtedly be other people who are paying attention in nature in your area. And they might have local knowledge of the city that would help you learn more quickly. So like a good example is that local naturalists might be able to tell you where there are deer in the city. And, maybe you thought that there were no deer in the whole area. So you might have otherwise gone years without realizing that there's a herd living close to you, and it opens up opportunities to go have some encounters with those deer, right? So get in touch with local birding groups and nature clubs and tracking clubs. All that stuff will help you progress a lot faster, and it's really one of the big advantages to being in the city that will help you be successful. So I'm Brian Mertens, and those are just some of my tips for all you urban trackers and naturalists. I hope you like this video, And if you want to learn more about how to discover nature in urban environments, go check out my website at naturementor.com.